Broadcasting live from the highest cloud of privileged patriotism. The PC Radio Show is on Mojo 50 Radio.
Every single afternoon, Mojo 50 Radio is the station that you want to search on iHeartRadio, also broadcasting live on the OpsLens app and broadcasting live on Clout Hub, Channel 200. And for now, we will continue to be on Facebook and Twitter as long as they allow us, and anywhere else that you might get your podcast. My name is Stu. That is Richard Leonard. Welcome into Patriotically Correct Radio. Good afternoon. Breaking news bombshells continue to pour out of reliable sources that are carefully vetted for their legitimacy as more damning and scandalous information that exposes the Bidens for their overseas business dealings comes to light. The former VP, now looking to take a seat in the Oval Office at the helm of the most powerful position in the world, has yet to issue a flat-out denial that he was benefiting from international dealings that compromised him as the Vice President of the United States in a sea of corruption that was exposed by the New York Post, later posted to social media, and of course, shut down. With 4 days remaining before a general election for the next bona fide leader of the free world, the Democratic candidate has nothing to say. Seriously, think about that. Joe Biden looked like a likely voter, and he looked like a mental patient until he became the nominee. He looked a likely voter directly in the eye and promised her that he would end fossil fuels. That's on videotape. It's all over the internet. I could replay it here, but I trust the audience of this show, and I'm confident in your ability to perform a simple Google search. Now, Biden's campaign says he misspoke, but he didn't. Biden has repeatedly stated on the record that he would end and ban fracking. That's a fact. Again, I'd play videotape here, but it's just so easy to find. I'd be insulting your intelligence by boring you with more Biden lies during a program that you rely on to deliver the truth and facts. It is entertaining, yes, but I find it to be a waste of time to watch a man with cognitive failures say whatever comes to his filterless mouth as he grovels before the masses of 12 that show up to his events, half of which are paid staffers. Richard, the fact is he's either that far gone mentally or he's just not capable of telling the truth. If either is true, and I believe both to be true, he should not be the president of the United States. Real journalists, and they're few and far between, have confronted Biden on whether or not he intends to support legislation that would allow for packing of the Supreme Court, essentially turning the High Court into another legislative branch, similar to a mini Congress. The only answer he's given to this point is that voters don't deserve to know, or that he'll know the position after the election. Completely unacceptable. The former vice president has repeatedly stated that he's the Scranton scrapper and that he grew up in Scranton, or that Scranton always has his back. We proved that to be a lie on this program just yesterday. He has yet to denounce Antifa or the violent actions of a political group called Black Lives Matter because the Biden campaign is relying heavily on their vote, and those are his people. He can't denounce them. You see, it doesn't really matter that Joe Biden is a real threat to national security. It doesn't matter that he was compromised as the vice president of the United States if he's from Scranton, or if he plans to slash over 10 million jobs with his ban on fracking or his promise to end fossil fuels by the year 2050. It doesn't matter if Hillary Clinton was involved in his shady and criminal business dealings, Richard, with foreign adversaries, or even if Obama himself was complicit in the Biden schemes. It doesn't matter if Joe Biden is controlled by a radical group of progressive that knows his time in office would be limited. And it doesn't matter if he intends to pack the court. It doesn't matter if the basement dweller is a pervert. And it doesn't matter that he's been documented time and time again as he caresses young girls, or if he's able to identify what shampoo she uses by a quick sniff here or there. Joe Biden can look Americans right in the face and tell them it's going to be a cold and dark winter, and that the only way out of a virus with a 99.8 survival rate is to look yourselves right in the eye, tell yourselves nothing is going to be okay, lock yourselves in the basement and run, to keep your children from their peers, to pull them from school, to give up sports or wear a mask that isn't even supported by scientific data. Endless lockdowns and backbreaking tax increases aren't a talking point. The fact that he's repeatedly lied about a drunken driver killing his first wife, claiming he was against the war in Iraq when he in fact voted for it, and lying about being arrested in South Africa, these things just shouldn't matter. Nah, nothing to see here. So what if he boasts about being arrested for attempting to visit Nelson Mandela, a visit which Nelson Mandela supposedly later thanked him for attempting? Never mind that. Never mind that none of it is true, not the arrest, not the attempted visit, and not the thank you from Mandela himself. When Biden continuously panders to African Americans, essentially insulting the intelligence of the black voter by claiming he's for them, when he sponsored a crime bill that incarcerated more blacks than any other law in our nation's history, you're just supposed to look the other way. Biden was caught plagiarizing a famous speech from a British Labour Party leader, plagiarized yet another speech from the late Robert Kennedy, lied about academic awards, lied about scholarships, lied about his ranking at Syracuse Law School, lied about marching in Delaware during the Civil Rights Movement, Medicare, Social Security, immigrants, race relations, trade, COVID-19, taxes, crime, lie, 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 and lie. But none of it matters. None of it. Why? Because out of 300 million people in the United States, only a handful of you will ever know the truth about any of it. If you happen to catch this show, or if you tune into Tucker every once in a while, you may get a quick glimpse. But let's face it, the majority of people that will go pull a lever in just a few days to decide the fate of this country, this world, will go in completely blind, totally reliant on the completely silent and completely dark media. They know they've seen racial injustice, misappropriated power by out-of-control cops, protested by mostly peaceful demonstrators, and super spreader events hosted by the narcissistic orange man that trampled all over the rights and dignity of women, immigrants, and minorities. And that's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, I sit here in this little echo chamber talking to like-minded people. You're an audience made up of mostly conservative valued, moderately libertarian, independent, free, and critical thinkers that stand for our flag, honor the men and women that courageously serve in our military or as police officers, and have a patriotic fire ablaze in your hearts that bleed for a free America. The rest of you may have stumbled across here using a hashtag that brought you to this broadcast. Maybe you were recommended by a friend, or you're just here to see what that conspiracy-minded, racist, and insensitive asshole is going to say next. Or maybe you just like Richard. But for whoever you are, or whatever brings you here, it's all actually just irrelevant. As police officers around the country are in full retreat, precincts are burned to the ground, entire cities are on fire. Businesses are closing after being looted. Lawless cities are overtaken by violent criminal thugs. Police command staffs are cowering and literally bowing to progressive elected representatives and radical, violent criminal thugs in the streets. Social media is silencing conservative voices. Netflix is running a series that depicts young and underage girls twerking half naked. Hollywood child porn and trafficking rings are going unchecked, and Hillary Clinton is still a free woman. Leaders in faith are predicting the end of the world. Civil war is all but imminent. Unborn children are being murdered by the masses. And any of us that talk about any of it or oppose all of it in general are all right-wing, extremist, Nazi-sympathizing racists who the media tells us the world is responsible for the burning of our cities and violence in the streets. We're being duped. Non-mask-wearing violators are the very reason that you'll never see a return to the past, but are forced to accept the new normal. A normal that looks like a third world country. An authoritarian ruling regime where speech isn't free, foreign governments own the majority of U.S. debt, the dollar is devalued, jobs are converted to the public sector, small businesses cease to exist, travel is restricted, and the media remains the propaganda machine for the hijacked Democratic political party controlled by radical socialists who crave power and control. They'll stop at nothing to get it. Even if it means forcing you to submit to a vaccination, using your freedom and fear as the controlling factors so that daddy government and mommy media can track your every move. And the worst part, they're using a virus that we all know to have a survival rate of over 99%. Look.
Okay, my name is Dr. Christiane Northrup. I'm a board-certified OBGYN physician trained at Dartmouth Medical School, Tufts New England Medical Center. I'm a former clinical professor of OBGYN at the University of Vermont College of Medicine. I'm the author of 3 New York Times best-selling books, including Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, The Wisdom of Menopause, and Goddesses Never Age. I've done 8 highly successful public television specials. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show 10 different times, and all the numerous TV shows like Dr. Oz and Rachel Ray and NBC Nightly News and all of the rest of it, kind of straddling the world between holistic medicine and conventional OBGYN. And my entire career really has been about teaching women everything that can go right with their bodies and how to make that their experience.
This COVID vaccine, can you tell what we do know about it and what you, from your experience, fear for the people that may take it?
Yes, there's never been a vaccine like this. It's an RNA vaccine. It is what's called a transinfection. It will fundamentally change people's DNA. And what I don't like about it, even more than the usual thing about the toxic metals that are in vaccines that make our bodies literally into an antenna with 5G. This one has the usual non-human DNA, like, monkeys, maybe fetal cells, pigs, whatever. And so it begins to make us what's called chimers, CHIMER, introducing non-human DNA into our bodies. What is worse, though, is that there is a patent and work that they've done at MIT to make a dye, and the dye is called luciferase, and under a light you'd be able to see who was vaccinated, who wasn't, and the deal is to store your biometric information, because this vaccine will have nanoparticles, nanocrystalline particles that are actually little robots, and they like little antennas, and they will have the ability to take your biometric data, not only your vaccine record, but your breathing, your heart rate, your activities, sexual activities, drugs that you're taking, where you travel, all of that, and then take that data and store it in the cloud. What's even more concerning is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on March 26, 2020, applied for a patent number 060606, to take that biometric data, give you a barcode, and connect each of us to cryptocurrency, so that we would become literally slaves to the system. Like everything, it would be the end of privacy, the end of freedom, because who gets the data? Who uses the data? And what do they do with it? So this patent to connect the vaccinated to cryptocurrency, making all humans a commodity, is extremely concerning. And everyone should be concerned, given that this is a virus from which 99.9% of people recover. So I would ask, why do we need anything like this? Because it goes far beyond those pandemics of old, smallpox and so on. This is very different. The plan here is to vaccinate the entire world. And the narrative that we're being sold is things will not go back to normal until everyone is vaccinated.
Wow. Here to help me restore some faith and maybe a little bit of hope for you is Greg Scasny. He is our Florida-based PC Radio contributor, a frequent guest here on PC Radio. We love having him. Greg, am I way off base here, totally pessimistic, or is America done?
Hey, heads up, brother. Keep chin up. All is not lost.
All right.
So, one of the things I think that you can tell, or at least as a conservative, you can start to tell when the left is in trouble, is especially the gaslighting that's happening with the MSM right now. So the mainstream media. I did something this morning. I went to CNN.com on another computer that I don't use all the time, and I searched for Bobulinski. And anybody can do this. Go to CNN.com, just search their whole site for Bobulinski. It brings up zero documents.
Nothing.
Right? So nothing. That's those type of things, and when they try to fake Giuliani story and things like that. When the mainstream media and big tech go out of their way to protect the candidate, to protect someone like Joe Biden, that the right is doing something right, and the only thing that fixes that sort of censorship, that sort of big tech bias, that kind of gaslighting, is more free speech, is programs like yours. The podcasts that are out there that are spewing, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, spewing truth from every orifice, right?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that fix that, right? So I think people are starting to wake up. Another thing to look at, too, is if you look at the highest rated cable television show right now.
Tucker Carlson. Yeah.
Tucker Carlson.
In
exactly,
history.
Right?
In the history of cable news television.
Now, so again, that's two things that are looking good in our favor, right? So again, all this comes down to is that Trump has to get reelected. That's the bottom line. But look what Sleepy Joe did, right? So Sleepy Joe put a lid on his campaign and said, "I'm going back in the basement. I'm scared shitless. I'm gonna stay down there until this is over," because he knows, this is not so much a campaign of what Joe Biden has done good. This is just a campaign about people that don't like Trump, right?
Well, his running mate has become the coronavirus, and his running mate has become the mainstream media. Kamala, whatever. Yeah, that's crazy. But he's got to come out of the basement now, right? He's coming back to Florida to campaign because he knows he's in trouble. And then what great report did we have this morning, right? GDP, 33.1% of surge, biggest post-World War II record ever, right? And this is in the middle of a pandemic. So obviously Trump's economic policies work well. And that's the thing that people don't realize is that, the MSN out there, again, I'm going to use that term, gaslighting is what they do with their polls. People need to ignore the national polls. I mean, if 2016 wasn't enough for people to understand that, national pollsters always oversample Democrats. They were wrong 100% in 2016. They need to ignore the national polls. People, especially, Republicans are probably 10 to 15% less likely than Democrats to actually divulge their voting intentions. Right.
But people vote with their pocketbook, right? In all ideology aside, most people, like I said, I'm going to say most, vote with their pocketbook. And let's look at the difference. Trump is the jobs candidate. I mean, he supports life, guns, and jobs, energy jobs, farm jobs, manufacturing jobs, tech jobs. That's the kind of stuff that resonates with voters. When Joe Biden says, we're going to lock it down again, we're going to ban fracking, like you said, and he said it 100 times. He can lie about it all he wants. Kamala said we're going to ban fracking. We want to get off of fossil fuels.
Oh, but wait, now we're not. Now we're not going to do that. Hold on a minute. That they didn't like the fact that we were going to get rid of 10 million jobs, and so hold on a minute. We gotta change our position on that. None of it matters. None of it matters because nobody sees it. Seriously, and Richard, I know you want to get in here, but I don't know, Greg, if you watched any of these hearings yesterday with Jack Dorsey from Twitter. But literally, I mean, he was called out for allowing the Ayatollah of Iran to say on Twitter that he was going to wipe Israel off of the map, and that did not violate Twitter standards for suggested violence. But yet somehow, when a conservative voice depicts on their Twitter violence that's perpetuated by another criminal anarchist group, they get censored because they're pointing out the people who are the babies of the media. Richard, you had something for Greg.
Well, Greg, you said something extremely profound, that this whole thing has become not a campaign for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris against Donald Trump. It's become a campaign about everybody that hates Donald Trump. And in a certain respect, I think the silver lining in this whole thing is that because this tremendous hate for the president has become such a top news story amongst the people that don't agree with us, it's kind of brought into light all this bullshit that's going on, all the Hunter Biden stuff, the lies, or what we want to call lies, about the coronavirus. Because if we didn't have this whole thing going on, this stuff would still be going on behind closed doors, and the American people probably wouldn't know a whole lot about it. So, I mean, I guess I try to find the silver lining in all of this whirlwind of bullshit that we got going on.
Good for you, because we need the balance on this show.
Well, I can tell you at least one thing I read this morning. So, with the Rasmussen poll. So again, I'm not a huge believer in polls, but Rasmussen had at one point had Trump behind by 12 points, right? And yesterday they had Trump up by a point. Again, it's still within margin of error, but you see that trajectory changing, and that just comes down to it's the difference in attitude, right? And that's what Richard mentioned just a second is still part of that mainstream media gaslighting, right? They want you to think that if you're a Trump supporter or you're a conservative and you're excited about what Trump's doing, you want to get him reelected again, that you're just effing crazy, right? And there's no reason you should ever think like that, because look at all this other stuff, and that's part of that gaslighting. But I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look at Joe Biden's rallies, and I don't give a crap what the the Associated Press said that's part of a strategy. I mean, who the hell has I don't know if you read that, but the Associated Press came out with a fact check that said the reason there weren't as many people at Biden rallies as there is at Trump rallies is that was a campaign strategy by Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's virtue signaling.
Literally.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's virtue signaling. That's all it is. It's look at us. We're social distancing. We're following the guidelines of the CDC. We're following science, and we've plagiarized the Trump administration's complete approach to the COVID-19 response. I was reading a similar thing, but it was on Twitter, and somebody was actually responding to me because I had put up video of the. It was a very creepy event. I'm sure you saw the one where Biden's coming down the stairs that have little flags alongside of them and a couple of little hibiscus plants or whatever at the bottom, and he does his little trot to the stage in front of 12 people, or I think Richard counted 32 of them, 16 of which were probably Biden staffers that were paid to be there, and the rest of them were the media that was covering it. It was a very creepy thing, and then I compared it to the 30,000 people that showed up in Macon, Georgia for the president's rally. And I said, there's something going on here. I mean, this is so obvious. How can we believe the polls? How can we believe the mainstream media? How can we trust anything that we're seeing? And they're proving that we can't trust them. I mean, look at this. They have completely made the Hunter Biden deal a non-story. They have suppressed this thing completely. Anybody in the American public that sees that happening ought to know exactly what's going on here. But the caution to me was, look, don't take these Biden attendance numbers as gospel and as gold and count on a Trump victory, because there are a lot more Democrats that have already made up their mind that are going to go out here and vote for this guy. They're just not showing up for the rallies because they believe him when he says these are super spreader events.
Yeah, it kills me that the Democrats are, or at least most on the left, are always saying listen to the science until the science goes against their ideology.
Yes.
Right. So when it comes down to lockdowns or the mask or how you compare a mask to a abortion and that kind of stuff about saving lives, it's always follow the science until again it goes against their ideology. So, and I guess the thing for me is that the reason I'm still very optimistic that we'll have a Trump victory is that, again, most Trump supporters are going to go out. They like to vote the day of. Again, we have record numbers, but I think the places that really matter. Florida, I think Trump's going to win Florida. Obviously, I'm from the beach, so I think he's going to win Florida. Pennsylvania, I think he has a really good chance of winning Pennsylvania.
Arizona
for sure. Michigan, I mean, what Governor Whitmer has done to the citizens of Michigan, I mean, should just piss every one of them off, right? And she basically came out and said that if you want the lockdowns to end, if you want the mask mandates to end, then you need to not vote for Trump. You need to vote for Biden. I mean, she basically came out and said that she's keeping Michigan locked down for political purposes.
Who, by the way, has promised a national mask mandate and total lockdown.
Exactly. And total lockdown, which, again, what does that do? It's all job killers is all that is. So,
but that's just another example of how this false narrative, people are, what I struggle with is how can people be so naive and just look into the eyes of somebody that'll lie right to your face and just believe it because of what they say. It's absolutely astounding to me that people can just, okay, well, he said that this is going to happen, like the mask mandates. Well, she said you got to vote for Joe Biden if you want to end mask mandates. But if you actually do some research of your own, you can see him plain as day staring into a camera talking about how many more people need to be wearing masks every day, and even in your own home, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and none of it seems to matter. Greg, we got about 30 seconds left. Give us some optimism to get out of here with, okay?
So,
please.
Again, optimism is going to be, you're going to see over the next few days, even the polls are going to show Trump tightening the margins. When voting day comes, I see him winning the top battleground states: Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Arizona. Those are the things that are going to push him over the edge. We'll be celebrating on November 4th. And I'm telling all my Democrat friends that they changed the voting day. Democrats now vote on November 4th. So Just remember that. Not that any Democrats probably listen to your show, but hopefully we can get a few.
They may have stumbled across a hashtag here or there. Come on, there's some Democrats that are sane, level-headed people that would actually love this show, because I'm kind of more of a libertarian, and I agree with Democrats in a lot of things that you may not know that I agree with them on. So, Greg Scasny, Florida resident, PC Radio contributor, and we always love having him on the show. Coming up in the second half, we are going to talk to Joe the Cop. It's a special appearance by him due to the things that are going on in Philadelphia. We're going to have all of that for you coming up in just about 2 minutes when we return. Patriotically Correct Radio. For Richard, my name is Stu Peters. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. More PC Radio straight ahead. Hey, it's Stu Peters for Johnson Jewelers, located in Woodbury, Minnesota, but more importantly, located online worldwide at johnsonjewelers.com. Why is that important to you? Well, because if you have been left behind or you have discovered a family heirloom or something that's important to you, maybe it's grandma's birthstone, or maybe it's a pendant or a family crest, maybe it's grandpa's ring, but it doesn't quite fit you, or maybe it needs to be restored, or you see something completely different in mind. Why shove that thing in a safety deposit box? Why put it aside or put it in a shadow box or just break it out every once in a while to show the grandkids? Instead, you could wear that with a custom piece of jewelry designed for you, specifically by johnsonjewelers.com. A quick visit to the website, a couple of emails exchanged, and maybe a few phone calls, and you will have that custom piece of jewelry that means something for you. Visit them online, worldwide, johnsonjewelers.com, johnsonjewelers.com. That's johnsonjewelers.com.
Prop 25 ends our right to put up bail for anyone, even though they may have been racially profiled. Prop 25 replaces bail with computer algorithms. Academic studies show that these algorithms are biased. Some call them black boxes. And Prop 25's new bureaucracy delays justice for innocent people stuck in jail. The NAACP asks you to vote no on Proposition 25.
Progressive politicians and politically correct assholes. PC Radio. Worldwide at the PCRadioshow.com.
Welcome back to the second segment of the Patriotically Correct Radio Show, brought to you by Law Dog Coffee, broadcasting live from the Law Dog Coffee studios. My name is Stu Peters. That is Richard Leonard. Every single bag, every single dollar that is spent on coffee over at Law Dog Coffee, PCRadio.com gets contributed to the Wounded Blue, which then helps law enforcement. And speaking of law enforcement, we're going to get into that. We have Joe the Cop standing by, but first we want to show you this video from Philadelphia. We want to caution our viewers, if you're actually watching this, if you have kids, take them away from the screen right now, because we're going to show this. It includes images from NBC that you might find upsetting. The shooting of Walter Wallace.
Yo, this crazy on here. Oh my God! Oh my God! Bro, they just killed them in front of me. Yo!
No doubt that you've probably seen images of that, at least still photos or videos being replayed all over the country, all over mainstream media. Of course, you're not going to see the story about Hunter Biden and his corruption, but I digress. You are going to see that all over the place, which has caused looting and riots, destruction and carnage, criminal anarchy all over democratically controlled strongholds across the United States. Here to join us and talk to us more about this particular shooting and then the response to it is Joe the Cop. Joe is an anonymous cop that is still a currently working cop. He's a 23-year lawman, a journeyman patrol officer. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Joe. It's good to have you as always.
Well, Stu, I just want to tell you it's 24 years now.
24. Happy anniversary.
Anniversary was the other day.
I'll have to have intern boy change your setup screen here to make sure that we include that extra year. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. Happy anniversary. Congratulations on your longevity in a career field that I suppose used to be fun, that you had a whole lot of passion for, and now, as you've articulated on this show previously, has become not so fun. What about the shoot? Let's talk about the shoot. Good shoot or no?
100%. I mean, listen, a 6-year-old should be able to look at that video and see that it's a justified shooting. You have an armed, violent male with a knife coming at 2 police officers who have their guns drawn on them. What did he think was going to happen? Stu, he obviously wanted to die that day for whatever reason. Maybe he woke up and realized, gee, I'm a career criminal, okay, and I don't have nothing else left. And this might have been his way out. They do that sometimes, Stu.
Yeah.
This is exactly what they do. I don't know why anyone could look at that and have an issue understanding why Walter Wallace was fatally shot, lawfully fatally shot, by the 2 Philadelphia Police Department officers. Anyone that has a problem with it is either A, okay, have an IQ of approaching 52, or B, they're just anti-police thugs who are going to call for the firing, the imprisoning of police officers no matter what they do, no matter how justified it is. The anti-police thugs do, you could show them a video of a police officer shooting a man who was holding a knife to a 6-year-old child's throat. And if that suspect is a minority, they want the officer strung up.
Specifically a black guy.
It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Let's just say for 1 second that those 2 white men were not cops and they were just dudes. And let's say they were black dudes. Would we still be even seeing this on the media? And what would anybody who has the right sense of mind to protect themselves, their property, the people that they love, have somebody charge them with a knife and do nothing about it? Do the masses expect that these officers just let this guy charge them and stick a knife in their chest? That's insane.
Yes, Rich, that's exactly what they expect. Listen, you're dealing with a savage, thuggish mindset, okay? They want the police to stop doing their jobs. They want crime to prevail in these areas. And when the police do their jobs and shoot a criminal, they whine that they are the victims. They have been enabled, okay, in this thought process by the disease known as liberalism. Mm-hmm. This is what has brought us here. I am predicting that eventually what you will see, because look what we saw with George Floyd with all these cowardly cops kneeling. I believe in time, and I hope I'm wrong, but I believe in time that you will eventually see cops kneeling when thugs like Walter Wallace have been shot and killed. And this is not a term that I just throw out there. This is not a man who had a mental problem and just went off the rails one day. If so, that would be sad. That would it wouldn't make the shooting any less justified, okay? But it would be sad if a man just went off the rails. A man of any color had a mental breakdown, went off the rails, and committed suicide by cop. But this is not sad. This man was a career criminal.
Joe, you mentioned that you thought that cops, and you predict most of your predictions on this show have come to fruition. And although
I'm sorry, I meant to finish that thought. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I predict in time you will see cops kneeling for people like Walter Wallace as well.
Yeah. Sadly be it, your predictions have come to fruition on this program. And, it's a dark looking future that you predict, but it seems to be panning out that way. You mentioned the kneeling and the bowing. What about the stand down orders? For example, in Philadelphia, a news outlet intercepted an email that was a directive to officers that anything involving property damage, assaults, things like that would not be responded to. And then there was a stand down order apparently here as well. I'm going to show you some video of the Philadelphia police being assaulted and in full retreat, and we'll get your reaction.
Oh, shit. Damn. Oh. Get him. Yeah. That's what I like. What the fuck I like? Yeah, that's what I like.
And we apologize for the language on the program. Sometimes we can't always control what other people say. But, here we are, the Philadelphia police in 2020, almost 21, in full retreat, running away from a criminal mob. To that, Joe, you say what?
I only blame the command staff, Stu. I blame the disgustingly cowardly command staff of the Philadelphia Police Department. It starts directly with Danielle Outlaw, Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw. She is the one who watched the video of the Walter Wallace shooting and said that she has some questions. You have questions? You have questions why 2 police officers shot a guy coming at them with a knife? You have questions? Maybe we need to send you back to school, and I mean elementary school, if you have questions on that. As to the retreats, Stu, again, as angry as that makes me to watch police officers in full retreat who would have been justified in shooting these thugs, as angry as that makes me, I can only blame the command staff for this. Unfortunately, the officers who have retreated, and this is where the problem comes in, the officers who retreated are not looking at the bigger picture. They're looking at their paychecks. Okay, they want to keep their paychecks. They want to keep their health benefits. Understandable. But by retreating, you can't ever go back. You can't ever take this city back. It's now fallen completely under criminal control. That's unfortunately the problem that the frontline officers have now become a part of when they retreated, because this is done. You can't go back. This is the Philadelphia Police Department. This is a police department that held the criminals in fear for many decades, and now it's done. You can't go back. It's over. If they would have just said, you know what, we don't care about these orders. We're not letting this happen on our street. What would the command staff have done? You're going to fire an entire station? No. What are you going to do? Write them up for making an arrest? No.
The command staff might have had to strap on their stuff and went out on the street and take the place of the people that they fired.
Yeah, Rich, they shouldn't even be there at that point. If they're not going to do what they're supposed to do, why even have them there?
Yeah, 100%. And this goes against every fundamental idea that we have of defense and, in many cases in warfare. What would have happened if the United States military just ran away when the Germans were advancing on their positions? What would have happened? We'd all be speaking German. I wouldn't even be here. I'm a Nigerian Jew, for Christ's sake. I'd be gone.
Do you know what, Rich? To answer that question, in 1941, or if they would have said retreat from the Germans, you know what would have happened to the commanding officer? They would have hung him for sedition.
Mm-hmm.
They would have said, no, he's gone, and now we got a new guy running the show. You can't retreat. Yep. That's the problem. The problem with police it is inculcated in our brains to follow orders. Follow orders. Follow orders. Well, I got news for you. I don't have to follow an unlawful order. And telling them to retreat is an unlawful order. But in order for you to be able to do anything of any any good, if you refuse to follow an unlawful order, you need the other 50 officers not to run away. You need them to stand there shoulder to shoulder with you. I mean, they shouldn't even be there at this point if this is what's going to be allowed to happen.
We aired some we aired some video yesterday on the show. I've got Intern Boy here. He loaded it back up because I want to get your reaction to this too. And this is just kind of more substantiating your position here that, is that ready? It's just more substantiating your position here that there's going to be bowing, kneeling, and lawlessness. This happened in Minneapolis just the other night.
So this goes with what I said. This one goes, no justice, no peace. Shoot back at the police. No justice, no peace. Shoot back at the police. No justice, no peace. Shoot back at the police. No.
It's just absolutely disgusting, Joe. And, there's going to be more of this all over the place. I'm sure that's
I blame
the
Minneapolis Police Department command staff, Stu.
Yeah.
I blame them. They created this. They started this. They started this over a year ago when Arredondo Madera, if that's how you say his name, told them to stop arresting black drug dealers. Specifically, told them to stop arresting black drug dealers.
Right.
This just empowers them. Look what Joe Biden said about the Philadelphia police shooting. Look what Governor Tom Wolf said about the Philadelphia police shooting. They are making this career criminal into a victim. If Joe Biden becomes president, not only will the riots become normal, commonplace activities in our daily lives, but they will also have the approval of the White House administration and whatever attorney general that he puts in charge, whatever radical leftist attorney general that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put in charge.
Well, we can assume that on that short list will be Keith Ellison, formerly Keith Hakeem Muhammad X, who is historically known for his racist writings that basically encouraged and celebrated the death of police officers. He's here in Minnesota. He's the one that concealed and hid the body cam footage in the George Floyd incident from the general public for a very long time. He also concealed and hid the medical examiner's report and didn't allow it to go out into the masses, even though the family said, we'd like this thing to be released, because it appears that George Floyd was at the hospital and alive for nearly a half hour, and that he had a lethal amount of fentanyl, meth, and heroin in his system at the time of his death. We didn't get to hear that narrative. And you know what, to be honest with you, I don't even think it would make a difference. And I say that because look at what happened in Minneapolis after a murder suspect killed himself. They went ahead and rioted all over and burned things down and looted in the city of Minneapolis. What do we have to do to get law and order back on the streets of America, specifically in these democratically controlled strongholds?
Stu, there is no other option. It's going to have to come down to civil war. I hate to say it, but that's what's going to have to happen. I believe that if people get pushed enough, they'll react offensively. And then when enough people start getting arrested by, and having charges filed against them by thugs like Keith Ellison, I believe what will happen after that is that a certain group of people will become proactive, and they will probably violently remove Keith Ellison and people like him. I believe that's what's going to end up happening, because people can only take so much. We want to come home after a day of work and relax. We don't want conflict. We don't want conflict with our neighbors. We don't even want to argue with our neighbors over a fence on the property line or anything like that. We just want to come home and relax. But sooner or later, Stu, if this comes to every person's neighborhood, they're going to go to where they think the soft targets are. You won't see them going to the rural areas like places in like Utah, okay, and places like that, or like some places in North Dakota where everybody there has guns. They're not going to go there. They're going to go where the soft targets are. But the only way that this can be stopped, because people are not getting a clue. They're not voting out these liberals who are enacting these hands-off laws and policies and victimizing these career criminals. Sooner or later, Stu, people are going to have to become violent to take it back. I wish I wasn't sitting here telling you this.
Yeah, I wish you weren't also.
It's going to have to happen. Unfortunately, this is where we're at. It's either you live under the boot heel of the 1%, and that's what these thugs are, the 1%. You live under the boot heel of the 1%, or you resist.
And I don't want anybody out here, I know that in the first half of the show you weren't around, Joe, but I was very pessimistic, and I had a very grim and dark outlook for America just based on the things that are going on that are right in front of us, and the hits just keep on coming in 2020. And, I don't want to be really dark here, but I can say this to add to some positivity. Let me say this. You are right. This is 1%. So when the mainstream media is flooding your living rooms with images and video depicting these people who are completely outraged by these racist and out-of-control cops, they don't represent the majority of people out here. And I'm telling you right now, if the Civil War is going to be against that group of people and people like you and myself and Richard and Scasny and all the other patriots that I know, it's going to be a pretty damn quick war. It's going to be short-lasting and over with very swiftly.
Well, I'll tell you, I belong to a couple groups that I won't name.
All right.
Whether it be through social media or whatever. And there's and I know I've been saying it for a long time. I've been saying it a long time. The tipping point is coming.
There's a tipping point. Yes.
There is going to be other option.
Yes, but there are legit groups of people that are ready, willing, and able to, like you said, Joe, violently remove the people that are allowing this stuff to happen. Not only that, but tell the cops, hey guys, go sit down, take a break. Just look the other way while you drink your coffee.
Yeah, we got this.
That's and this is here's what I'm saying. Like, people say, you listen to these people say, well, this is the America I grew up in. You know what? They have a different idea of what the America should be. When they're talking about when they say keep illegal aliens out of this country, that's not the America we grew up in and everything like that. No, it actually was, because we are a nation of laws. What I'm seeing now is not the this isn't a liberal talking point for me. What I'm seeing now, we are not the America that we grew up in.
That's right.
Okay, where I grew up in, they did not have hundreds of thugs going into a neighborhood harassing and terrorizing people because some career criminal got shot while the police stood down. The police were always the first line of defense, the first and last line of defense. Now you're having them stand down. This isn't the America. So if you want that America again, I hate to say it because I don't want this to come to that, but unfortunately, this is where it's going. There will be a tipping point, as you've said, Rich. There will be a tipping point where people will have no other choice. They won't be able to come home and walk up their driveway without being confronted by people who don't even know them. They're just mad that some career criminal got shot. This is just what's going to have to happen. This is why it's so important that the police be allowed to do their job. Because vigilantism, while it is a logical consequence to the lawlessness that the police fail to stop, it's not going to be good because these are people that don't answer to anybody. The police actually have a system in place where they answer. They're checks and balances. That is why it's so important to have the police do their jobs. The actual number of cases of legitimate excessive force or police brutality, whatever you want to call it, the actual number of cases do not justify this mass hysteria. The Department of Justice, the federal government, routinely denies probably 96% of the excessive force cases that are referred to them because they know it's not excessive force. They take the ones they believe they can win, and when they take it, they usually do win. 96%.
Joe, I want to ask you a question here, and I'm going to shift gears just a little bit and go away from the police brutality and go back into politics, which I know that you like to try to avoid it, but I heard you mentioning that people either have to vote these people out or physically remove them if they want something to actually change. If on November 3rd, the Americans, the silent majority, speak out and they reelect Donald Trump in a landslide victory, and for some reason, Biden, going against my prediction, concedes the election. And on November 4th, when you wake up in the morning, you know that Donald Trump is going to be the president of the United States. What do you, if we are violently reacting, if criminal thugs called Black Lives Matter and Antifa and Black Bloc and all these people are out here doing this when a career criminal goes after two police officers with a knife and is justifiably shot and killed, how do you think the streets are going to look on November 4th when Donald Trump is declared the winner and the new president of the United States again?
Well, Stu, I'm not all that confident in Trump's chances, if you want me to be honest. I'm voting for him, but but let's just say you're right, okay, because I hope that you are right, because the alternative is unthinkable. Yes, absolutely. There's going to be rioting. Stu, there's just, people have a professional victim mentality now. They really do. I'm listening to what some of these people are saying while their neighborhoods are being shut down by these thugs, saying, well, I kind of understand why they're mad, even though it's kind of inconveniencing me. Are you kidding me? Like, you can't. This is a professional victim mentality. This is not America. America fights back. This is not how we were raised. And I'm not going to allow you to take over my street. It's just not going to happen. And at that point, when people, hopefully they wake up someday, when they do, the police have a decision to make. Are you going to arrest people for defending themselves like they did in St. Louis? Or are you just going to say, well, hey, listen, if they don't want me to arrest these thugs, I'm not arresting them? Or are you going to step in and do something about it? Because, Stu, we cannot have anarchy like this in the streets. When the vigilantism, in the age of vigilantism that comes here, Kyle Rittenhouse was just one guy. There's a lot more that have better training than he did. And look what he did, just one guy. When the age of vigilantism comes, you're also going to wish the police would come back. Because, again, there are checks and balances with the police. There aren't checks and balances with vigilantes. You will get rid of these problems like Antifa, okay, and these radical Black Lives Matter chapters. But what you will then have, you'll have it to the other end of this spectrum. And that's not good either. This is why it is so important to have law.
Richard,
order.
let me
This is
ask
why we
you
have the system.
politically, Richard, if Trump is reelected, do you see the Resurrection Act being enacted? I mean, do you see the Insurrection Act being enacted? Do you see the president of the United States saying, okay, you know what, F it, I just won. Now for obvious reasons, it's my opinion that for obvious reasons, for political reasons, for the reason of the November 3rd election upcoming here in just basically hours, that he's not done that, because it would look really bad to have tanks rolling the streets of America right now. But do you think that if he wins this thing, Richard, that's what his plan is?
I think it's possible. I think that it would be one way to quickly take back our country. And coming from a soldier standpoint, tanks rolling through the street and taking back places by force is what the military is meant to do in some respects.
Yeah.
When it comes to that,
all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? I mean,
exactly.
This is a threat to the nation's national security. Joe, how about you? The Insurrection Act. Your thoughts?
Stu, I will say what I said in the beginning with Ferguson. Remember when Michael Brown was justifiably shot and killed by Officer Darren Wilson? There was rioting. Yep. The St. Louis County Police came in with their armored vehicles, and they had these thugs under control. But then the problem became, Stu, was Governor Jay Nixon, that weak, cowardly individual that he was, said he didn't like how that looked. He didn't like how it looked like the police were bullying people, in other words, keeping it under control. So what he did was he sent in the Missouri State Patrol and put in that pacifist, thuggish Captain Ron Johnson, who marched with the protesters. And look what you had after that. And once that happened, and then some other chief just said, God, I don't think I really like those tactics I saw. And then it caught like wildfire because, Stu, chiefs, some are good, some are not good. The bad chiefs, they go right over the cliff with the other ones like lemmings. When one has a bad idea, they all follow along with it. How did we get to this point? You asked me a few weeks ago. Here was my answer to you. One street at a time. We let them take over one street at a time. Now you're seeing 10 people shut down a street while 50 cops stand around and do nothing. This is unconscionable. We can't have this.
To address the cowardly chief and the following suit and all those things, and we went way over the allotted amount of time that I was going to have you on here, but I find the conversation to be compelling and very interesting. Let me ask you this. At what point to a chief do the voices of the citizens in his or her jurisdiction outweigh the authority of the city council and the mayor? And at what point does a chief stand up and say, I don't really care about this job anymore. You can take it and shove it up your ass. I'm going to do what I was put here to do. And how does a chief, like what's happening in Minneapolis, if Medaria Arredondo really wants to do the right thing and turn into like a Grady from down in Polk County, Florida, how does he go about doing that in about 1 minute?
Medaria Arredondo, and I realized I got his name backwards last time. Medaria Arredondo cannot do that. Medaria Arredondo was born with a lack of intestinal fortitude. He cannot do it. He was put in that position because they knew he wouldn't do it. He is a reflection of the city government. The city government is a reflection of the constituents of Minneapolis. It all feeds into each other. It's all cyclical, Stu. This is why he is where he is. He's never going to stand up.
And this is why we have this mass exodus of police officers. We know some guys personally. They loved being cops, and they're gone. And a few of them that loved being cops and have been there for a very, very long time are retiring early. We see the PTSDing out. And, I think there's some legitimacy to the PTS that these officers, look they witnessed their own precinct burning down. They had commands to stand down. They had orders to vacate their house and leave the 3rd precinct while it burned down after they had Jersey barriers and concertina wires set up in order to stop that. We always love having you here, Joe. I appreciate it. I'm running out of time here, but I'd like to have you back for Force Matrix Fridays. I just wanted to have you on for this special edition in light of what's going on in Philadelphia. The fact that we hadn't been able to catch up with you was kind of bothering me, and we love your expertise here on the show. I don't like your pessimistic outlook about the general election coming up here in a few days, though.
I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong, too.
I'll be happy to come back in 2 weeks and have you beat on me if I'm wrong. That's no
very
problem.
Good. Very good. Joe the Cop. We always love having him on here.
Thank
Richard,
you, Joe.
Yeah, Richard, the thing about our city here in Minneapolis, and when we watch this marching, and we watch this, no justice, no peace, shoot back at the police. A while ago in St. Paul, I think it was after Philando Castile was justifiably shot and killed by a St. Anthony police officer there. Yanez was his name. We had the same thing going on with pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. This has absolutely got to end. I'm calling on Mayor Jacob Frey, Governor Tim Walz, and Medaria Arredondo to do the right thing. Richard, your final words.
Our greatest freedom as Americans is, and then our greatest right is the right to be left alone. And we're not getting that. We need to get it back, and it will be gotten by force if necessary, I think.
And against your will and against your wishes, we are going to leave you alone. But we will be back. Trust me, we will be back tomorrow at
just
4
for 23 hours.
And every single day at 4 o'clock. See you tomorrow. Hey, it's Stu Peters and Richard Leonard for Law Dog Coffee Company. Welcome to Law Dog Coffee Company. Some heroes wear capes, ours wear a badge. Every single purchase you make goes to support law enforcement. So if you love the cops, if you support law enforcement, if you don't agree with defunding the police, if you want to make sure that they have good equipment, if you want to take care of law enforcement families, this is the only coffee that you want to drink. And not only that, their purpose is great, but the coffee is even better. You can sign up online very easily for freshly roasted specialty coffee to your door. You can choose weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly deliveries. Gifts and apparel also available. Law Dog Coffee Company, located at lawdogcoffee.com. Lawdogcoffee.com. That's lawdogcoffee.com. Use the promo code PCRadio for 10% off every purchase.